I am Lina, 24 years old, an interior designer whose life was irrevocably shattered over the course of a single night. This is the story of how I fell for a charming architect, became the other woman, and was forced to hide in a pitch-black, airless food storage unit for 6 agonizing hours. A night of terror that ended with the devastating revelation that the wife I was hiding from was my own estranged older sister. This is my confession, a raw account of betrayal, claustrophobic fear, and the cruel twist of fate that taught me that the secrets we bury in the darkest corners always claw their way into the light, often harming the ones we least expect. My name is Lina. I am 24 years old, a graduate of interior design, and I was building what I thought was a promising career at a reputable firm. I stand before you not for sympathy, but as a cautionary tale. I made a conscious, flawed choice, a moral compromise I justified with feelings, never imagining it would lead me to the most psychologically traumatic experience of my life. A night where time dissolved into pure panic, and my own heartbeat was a deafening drum of dread in a space no larger than a coffin. It began with an elevator ride. A mundane Tuesday morning, the scent of coffee and perfume hanging in the air. He stepped in, and his presence immediately commanded the small space. He was impeccably dressed, with an air of quiet confidence and a scent that was a mix of sandalwood and clean linen. He was Oliver, a newly hired architect for our firm's major projects. Our floors were adjacent, and a casual conversation about the building's inefficient layout sparked a connection. He was charming, witty, and his gaze made me feel seen. As we exited, he gently touched my arm, a gesture that felt electric. "I'd love to continue our conversation over coffee sometime," he said, his smile disarming. "May I have your number?" Flattered, I gave it to him. Thus began a carefully curated courtship. Oliver was the epitome of a gentleman. He remembered small details I mentioned, brought me a specific pastry from a bakery I loved, and always made sure I got home safely after late work sessions. He would stand protectively close in crowded elevators, his hand a steadying guide on the small of my back when we took the stairs. My desk became a periodic recipient of exquisite floral arrangements, never overly flashy, always tasteful, with notes that spoke of admiration, not possession. He painted a picture of a dedicated bachelor, married to his work, yearning for a genuine connection. I, caught in the glow of this attention, chose to believe the narrative. I fell in love with the idea of him, with the future he whispered about during stolen lunches and late-night calls. When I accidentally discovered, through a colleague's offhand comment, that he was in fact married, I was already in too deep. My heart had overruled my conscience. He offered excuses, a marriage that was a formality, a cold partnership, an imminent separation. I, wanting to believe the man I loved, clung to these justifications. It was my first and greatest failure. The catalyst for my descent into hell was an invitation, one I accepted with both longing and trepidation. It was a cool December evening. Oliver's wife, he assured me, was on a business trip in another province and would not return until the following afternoon. He missed me, he said. He wanted to spend real, uninterrupted time together in a space that wasn't a shadowy car or a public place. The promise of normalcy, of a semblance of a real date, was too enticing. I ignored the gnawing voice of danger. Their home was beautiful, a testament to his architectural taste, open plan, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a glittering cityscape, minimalist yet warm. It felt like a home, a family home, which should have been my second warning. We were in the living room, he was choosing a film, and I felt a fleeting moment of peace. That peace was obliterated by the sudden, aggressive blare of a car horn from the driveway. Oliver's face went pale. He rushed to a tablet displaying the CCTV feed. "It's her," he hissed, panic stripping away his usual composure. "She's back early. She can't find you here." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic, silent chaos. My purse, my scarf, my phone, he gathered them like scattered evidence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. The fear of exposure, of the shameful, public confrontation, was paralyzing. He pulled me not toward the front door, but deeper into the house, into the kitchen. There, beneath the main staircase, was a small, unassuming wooden door. He yanked it open, revealing not a closet, but a deep, narrow food storage pantry. It was a cavity in the house's anatomy, lined with metal shelves buckling under the weight of bulk rice sacks, towering stacks of canned goods, boxes of pasta, and industrial-sized condiments. The air that wafted out was stale, carrying the faint, metallic scent of tin and dust. "Lina, please, you have to get in here, just for a few minutes. I'll tell her I forgot something at the office. We'll leave together. Please, it will be quick." His voice was a desperate plea. My claustrophobia, a lifelong adversary, roared inside my head. The mere sight of that confined, dark space made my throat tighten. But the alternative, facing his wife, the destruction of his marriage, for which I felt a sudden, grotesque responsibility, and my own professional and personal ruin, seemed infinitely worse. Driven by this catastrophic calculus, I obeyed. I contorted my body to fit inside, displacing a bag of onions that rolled silently on the floor. He whispered a final, "Stay quiet," and closed the door. With a soft, definitive click, the world went dark. Not a comforting dark, but an absolute, oppressive, swallowing blackness. The few minutes stretched into an hour, then two. My initial fear curdled into something worse, a grim, sweating, trembling reality. I was trapped. I could hear everything. The front door opening. The bright, familiar sound of his wife's laughter. A sound that, even then, held a haunting, unrecognizable echo. The casual, domestic sounds of them moving around the kitchen, just feet away from me, separated only by a thin wooden panel. The clink of wine glasses, the sizzle of food on a pan, the comfortable, mundane conversation I was never meant to hear. He called her Hun. He asked about her trip. They talked about plans for the holidays. Every word was a scalpel. My body betrayed me. Sweat soaked through my clothes, not from heat, but from the sheer, overwhelming torrent of adrenalized panic. My breath came in short, ragged gasps that I struggled to stifle, each inhalation tasting of dust and dried herbs. A full-blown panic attack seized me. The walls felt like they were pressing in, the ceiling descending. I was convinced I would faint, that my body would slump and knock over a shelf, causing a catastrophic avalanche of cans that would reveal my shameful presence. I focused on a single point of light, the thin, almost invisible sliver of yellow under the door, and made it my lifeline. Time lost all meaning. It was measured in the slow crawl of that light beam, in the rhythms of their conversation from dinner, to moving to the living room, to finally, the heavy silence of the house late at night, punctuated only by the distant creak of floorboards upstairs. In that darkness, my mind turned inwards. The initial terror was slowly replaced by a cold, clarifying fury. Who was I? How had I, Lina, an independent woman, a professional, allowed myself to be reduced to this? A hidden thing, a secret stowed away like contraband, trembling in a pantry while the man I loved lived his real life with his real wife just inches away. The anger was a fire that burned away my last illusions. This wasn't love. This was degradation. Near dawn, when the house was steeped in deepest silence, the door finally opened. The wedge of light from the kitchen was blinding. Oliver stood there, silhouetted, his face drawn and shadowed. He didn't reach for me. He simply whispered, "Sorry, you have to go, now." Wordlessly, my body stiff and aching, I extracted myself. He hurried me through the silent house, out a side door, and into the cold, pre-dawn air. He did not look at me. He did not offer an explanation. The door closed behind me, with a finality that echoed in my soul. Back in the sterile safety of my condo, physical escape did nothing to quiet the turmoil. Sleep was impossible. In a daze, I scrolled through my phone, through pictures of a happiness that now seemed like a sick parody. And then I saw it. A photo I had taken that very evening, in a moment of playful affection, capturing Oliver's smile in his living room. In the background, slightly blurred but unmistakable, was a large framed portrait on the wall. A family portrait. My finger, trembling violently, zoomed in. The woman beside Oliver, her head tilted against his, smiling a smile I hadn't seen in over a decade but whose curve was etched in my childhood memory, was my sister, my 8 Clarice. The world dropped out from under me. A tsunami of nausea and disbelief crashed over me. Clarice, who left for abroad after a bitter fallout with our father, who maintained only a fragile digital connection with us through carefully curated Facebook posts. She had mentioned a husband, an architecture student at the time, a private wedding overseas. The man in her photos was always slightly angled, filtered, or wearing sunglasses. I had never connected the dots. The distance, both emotional and digital, had served as the perfect veil. In one horrific, gut-wrenching instant, My moral failing transformed into an unforgivable familial betrayal. I hadn't just been the other woman. I had, in my profound ignorance and selfishness, become a traitor to my own blood. The lesson was seared into me with the heat of a brand. Meddling in another's relationship is a poison that inevitably seeps back into your own life. The karma is precise and brutal. Often, the person you wrong is inexplicably, tragically connected to the very core of your own existence. The secrets we think we've buried in the smallest, darkest rooms of our lives have a will of their own. They grow in the silence, and they always find a crack to emerge from, exposing us in the most devastating light possible. I have cut Oliver out of my life completely. No explanations, no dramatic confrontations. The silence is my penance. I have also left my job, the city that holds these memories, and I am attempting to build a new life elsewhere, carrying this weight. I have not contacted Clarice. What words could possibly suffice? My sin is not just against her marriage, but against the sacred bond of sisterhood. This letter is my only testament, a message cast into the void, pleading with anyone who reads it. Do not seek light in another's darkness. The cost is one your soul may never recover from. Once again, I'm Lina, and this is my confession.